Hello, I'm presenting today my version of a tenure and promotion plan for a higher education institution. Most institutions have what they call tenure, a tenure line. And this tenure line, and basically all it is a way of guaranteeing some kind of job for the person who has gone through there and has received their tenure. That allows them to teach the way they need to teach or feel that they have to do research without any repercussions. So I like to go through my diagram here and show you how I see a tenure plan or track, how I think it should follow. And basically, this is using what we call a mandala. It's a diagram that is used in other areas more for type of intrinsic and extrinsic type um, of evaluation of self. But I took it to a different level where I took it for as our diagram for our tenure plan. And basically this diagram here starts from the outside and collapses all the way into becoming the going to tenure, and then from tenure reapplying and getting your professorship. So let's start with the diagram and go through different components of this, and hopefully this will be much more clear to you then. So here on the outside, if you're working at a higher education institution, a lot of times there's many type of lectures, and that's where you could be starting. So if we were to starting ground zero, this is where you would be starting on the outside here. And you'd be called a lecturer, and each year you would have a reappointment whether or not you would actually have a job. So you really don't know from year to year whether or not you would have a job at that time. And then possibly you have the opportunity, either the university helps pay for it, or you pay for it yourself and you decide to get some kind of terminal degree, whether that be a PhD or a Doctor of Science or anything of that nature, some kind of terminal degree. So as we move forward, then at some point you may say, hey, listen, I would like to offer a tenure or go for tenure. Now, some universities limit the number of tenure tracks because it can cost university money. Some universities are getting rid of tenure tracks because there's an argument of, if that professor ends up um, kind of losing their skills or losing their passion for what they're teaching, and maybe are just a bunch of dead wood, that there's no way you're really getting rid of anybody once they get full-fledged tenure. So a lot of universities, or some universities, are getting rid of that. I feel that if it was my university and my department, that I would offer as many tenure tracks as possible that people would like to apply for. Now, saying that, not everybody that applies would get to be able to follow this tenure track. And what I would use is like basically from here, the reappointment committee also looks over lectures. I would use that same reappointment committee to accept whether or not someone should follow a tenure track, as well as the dean of that school, the School of Athletic Training, say. And that person, the dean, as well as the reappointment committee, would meet and look over um, the possibility of this person um, going for tenure, whatever application we decide to form. If they are accepted and they're allowed to do tenure track, most universities allow 2 to 7 years for you to complete your. And at that point, if you do not complete it, then there's a possibility that you would lose your job. So again, collapsing towards the center, you have your terminal degree. You decide to go tenure track. You put in an application, and we decide to accept it. And then there's several things you must do in order to get to the center and get this tenure. There's several different steps that you need to do over your 7-year period. And let's go over those. One of them, you have to be able to show that you're proficient in teaching. And the way to do that is one is using reflective evaluation. And I would say self reflective evaluation. I would put more weight towards an instructor. And at this point, if you're on tenure track, I would change the name from lecturer to assistant professor. And if you are assistant professor, I would like to know and see some of your reflective evaluation about yourself. We have seen in the research that peer evaluations are not always truthful, that some instructors will get very high marks if their class is somewhat easy, and those instructors who could be very good and very difficult will get lower marks. And then also, there could be a peer bias as well, but we will have to still utilize peers because we hope with integrity that they could give some kind of proper review. And if you go down here, another, again, for teaching, you would have peer review, again, going towards the center of tenure. So you have reflective evaluation, self-reflective evaluation, you have peer review that would be part of your tenure track, and then you also will have letters of support that could be from other departments, could be from different people you work with, committees, whatever the case is, and then about your teaching, and then also showing that you teach with excellence. So these 4 areas are areas that I would highly um, start with and start having the individual that wants to go tenure track uh, work on or collect as they move towards tenure during their 7-year period before they put their application in or put their package together. So the next thing you need to show is scholarship. And there's 4 areas again, collapsing towards the center. You don't have to do it in this order, but for the way to make it look nice and neat and tidy, I kind of broke it up into these areas. First, we have teaching, and now getting closer to the center, we have scholarship here. Scholarship in publications, meaning you got published. Scholarships in practice and certification, that you're keeping up with your certifications within your practice. Uh, you also are doing continuing education and teaching, as well as also your area of focus, your area of expertise, and then also you have scholarship in presentations, presenting at conferences, symposiums. Now, a lot of universities require you to have maybe 3 publications and um, maybe 2 presentations or a combination of something of that nature. In my program, I would say that you would have to have a minimum of 5 presentations and publications total, and but you have to have at least one in one of those 2 areas. So it may be very difficult in an area that you research to get it publicized, to get it public, or to get it in a peer-reviewed journal. So, but I would require that person to at least get one publication um, with their name attached to that, and they could do as many as 4 presentations to suffice for that completion of 5. So then, if we go down to the next area, we can look at service. Again, collapsing towards the center. And this is building one big package and showing your body of scholarship to get to tenure. And then here at the top, you have service to your profession. So in athletic training, whether or not you're on committees or you're, whether that be at the state, the national, or international level, we're looking at service in your department. Are you, again, part of different committees, or you're forming, maybe you're developing courses in the area in your department. You're showing leadership. Also, same here as far as service to the university. Are you on committees? Are you showing leadership? Are you being that leader that others will follow? That say, hey, that's where I want to. That's who I want to eliminate, to follow, or to also look up to, and be like that person. And then I have this service here of community. So we're going out to the community. We're doing civic service. We're doing possibly we're engaging ourselves in the community, and we're not just in our little university and just doing work there. We have some kind of community component to our service, and I would have to say also that I think one area it just seems like that going for a tenure track seems very stressful. Seems like if you just don't do it, then they're just going to cut you loose. It seems very aggressive in that nature. I would like to see it that we're worried about we talk about student centered, we talk about patient centered, and maybe we should talk about employee centered service as well, or employee centered. And one way I would do this with this guy, utilizing this kind of diagram, is have each person that is actually on a tenure track have an assigned mentor, and that mentor, it depends on how many tenure tracks you have, but for the most part, I would want a one-on-one situation where I can have somebody that already went through tenure, that is tenured, and is mentoring that person going through that track. So that's one way that I would do more of an employee-centered program. So once we get to the 6 year, um, many programs ask you to put a package together of all this, your whole body of scholarship, your recommendations, your papers, everything. And then when you bring that package together, you submit it again to the reappointment committee that we talked about earlier, that looks at reappointments for lecturers, and also ones that are reappointment committee would look at those that are taking tenure track. So they would look at this package, but not only would the reappointment committee look at this package, the dean of the school would look at the package, the board of trustees will look at the practice, and the president, because there's a financial component to making someone tenure. And also, this is where I would bring in HR, human resources. I would bring them in this point, and I'll tell you why. Because at the point where this package is either going to be accepted or denied, if this package is accepted, great. HR can be there and say, hey, listen, this is now what is the next step as we go towards being a full-fledged professor. But if somebody gets denied, I would put in an appeal process that would use the HR department as an arbitrator. So somebody that's a little bit more neutral, doesn't have all their colleagues, some colleagues that are on these committees, that they know everybody, that can be very, again, neutral to the situation, and see why that person was denied, and I think that would make it a very fair process. The other way I would also, the reason why I would have HR at this point is because if they do get denied and HR agrees, then our higher education system would allow 1 year for that person to stay around while they're looking for another job. And obviously, when you're like excusing somebody from a company, such as a higher education institution, HR is usually involved as well for the final dismissal and any paperwork that they may need to finalize that. So, again, so you can reduce the likelihood of liability. And then once you get tenured, you can see here in the center, then that person can also then apply to the reappointment committee to get full-fledged professorship. And so that is my plan that I've kind of developed. Um, and I feel that, I think in summary that one of the most important things is that, the people that are working for you to teach the students coming to the university, and they are your greatest resource. And we have to think that it's not just student centered, but as a business of higher education, that we should be employee centered. And we should be celebrating these people that want to take tenure track and leading to get their tenure and then professorship. And as of right now, it's very difficult to dismiss somebody that's tenured. Um, but they put in the time. They show you the body of scholarship work that they've done, and that they deserve to have tenure at that point, and that they should be able to teach and do research and not worry about where that next paycheck or whether they have a job the following year. However, there should be also a process for HR and for the departments that if something does occur, that there should be an evaluation and whether or not that person should keep their tenure at that time. But that goes beyond the process that I'm looking at as of right now. And again, if you just look at this diagram, you're looking starting at ground zero, coming from the outside, and everything you do starts collapsing towards this big celebration of getting tenure and then professorship. If you have any questions about this or have any ideas that you would like to share with me, you can reach me at wmills@malvernprep.org. Have a great day.